Hey folks, this is Clint with Band Tactics, and this is the very first episode, so I'm really excited about it. We're going to be discussing the topic of bands going into the recording studio. I'll break it down into 3 categories. Basically, what to prepare for, what questions bands should ask themselves before going into the studio, what bands should expect once they're in the studio, and also what's expected of them. And equally as important, what bands can do post-recording. So I went up to Sacramento, California to talk with Sean Stack of Fat Cat Recording Studios and ask him some of these questions that you guys might have yourself. And more importantly, maybe these are questions that you haven't thought about yet. So he gave some great insight and hope you enjoy the video and get a lot out of it. Sean, give us a little introduction about yourself, who you are, what you do, and why you're so good looking, amongst other things.
It's the hair, obviously. I'm an engineer and producer here at Fat Cat Recording in Sacramento. I've been a musician my entire life. Since I was a wee child, started playing guitar, played drums and keys and bass and everything.
So what kind of inspired you to become an engineer?
The first time I ever went into a studio was a home studio for one of my friends. His dad had a studio. His dad was a kind of rock star back in the 70s and had this nice studio at his place. And it was the first time I'd ever recorded something and heard it back. How can I make that sound like the records?
Like, which styles of music come through your studio the most?
I do everything really. I've done country, R&B, rap, said pop type stuff, hard rock, metal, hardcore.
So if I'm a brand new band and I'm thinking about going to the studio, right? What are the main things that I should be most concerned with? Price and location would probably be the biggest right off the bat, but kind of talk us through some of the other questions that bands should be considering and talking amongst themselves before they decide to pick a place.
If you're a band and you can't take a bunch of time off work to travel to a location for however many weeks, some bands do that. They'll travel down to LA or wherever it is, wherever's far from where they're at. Then location, if you want to find a good local studio. That helps keep expenses down in general then, because you don't have traveling expenses, you don't have to be eating out for the whole time and doing all these things.
So you let bands come and live with you when they travel from out of town so that they can cut back on that?
Not get that precedent going. If you're looking at local studios, you can compare. It really pays to compare side by side, like the end product, and hear what not only that studio, but that engineer.
Exactly.
Because there are some studios that have platinum records on their walls from whatever album that they did, but it was like, the guy literally pressed record while some big producer was in the room telling everybody what to do, and then it was mixed by some guy who charges 10 grand a song. So you're going to get a way different product, obviously, if you're a small band, because you're on a budget and you're not bringing in these top dogs. So the main thing is to compare what those actual producers, those local guys, have done, and figure out and is it a kind of sound that you're going for? Because certain people specialize in certain sounds more than others. Everybody has their style.
What about like the studio equipment? You have a beautiful DW kit. If I'm a drummer, I am a drummer, and I want to come in and use your stuff. What about like the DAW or the programs that you use to actually record? Is there something for a specific genre that would be a better fit, or is it just kind of like, if I'm a folk singer and I come in and you're using something that is more tailored to rap? I don't know if that matters.
Sure, I got you.
Explain a little bit.
Most DAW softwares are pretty comparable today as far as what they can do. Their softwares are pretty good. So generally, most studios use Pro Tools. It's just it's the standard thing.
The market standard.
Yeah. So I don't think that the DAW itself matters as much as how it's used. There's some are geared towards like the Fruity Loops type stuff or whatever the Reason software is geared towards more beat making and that kind of thing. And they might not have the same kind of depth of audio editing and the same kind of mix engine as something like Pro Tools does. But if the person who's running it knows what they're doing, they can get a good sound out of it.
So when a band comes in and they have a proposal on dates, they want to record an entire album or an EP or just a song, are there some legal aspects that they should be taking into consideration before coming in and putting something recorded and down on and distributing it and making money off of it?
You want to have your band agreement. You want to, and along with who gets what percentage of profit, you want to say who, kind of a breakdown of okay, what are you responsible for doing too? So somebody doesn't feel like, oh, this person doesn't do anything, and so then it's fair. It's like, okay, well, say the singer writes 99.9% of everything, and that would be indicated in there. Okay, this person's the primary writer, this person's entitled to more percentage, that kind of deal. So it's just good to, keeps everything on the up and up, keeps your friendships intact no matter what happens, because I've seen things happen where money's made and then people threaten lawsuits and things happen.
You get into it with all the best intentions and having a good time, and then things get serious, and then you realize that, there's money to be made, and you put out something good, and let's do something bigger.
Exactly. When there's real money on the table, things can happen. As far as copyright and all that, I've never really seen a lot of issues with like, oh, we didn't get our song copyrighted, now somebody's ripping us off. I don't see that a lot. I'm sure it's not a bad idea.
So have you recorded cover songs? So like if somebody wants to come in and do a cover?
If they record a cover, then if they're going to release it and sell it, then they have to get that cleared. They have to, basically pay whatever percentage to the writers, to whoever owns that part of it. You can record covers all you want. Then once you start selling them, that's when
once you start making money, it's like, hey.
Profits there, exactly.
Okay, so bands are getting ready to come in. They've shopped around. They've found a studio that they like. Fat Cat Recording Studios, obviously. Of course. So they're coming in to record with you. So give some insight on what bands can do to kind of prep for the studio environment when they come to decide to record.
Well, a lot of it is having your song dialed in, because there's inevitably things are going to change in the studio. You're going to try things. You're going to add layers and doubles of things that you wouldn't normally have, obviously. But having the song, the core of the song, pretty much there, and recording when you're practicing, like put a little, your iPhone or whatever it is in the room, record it, make a little demo.
Some sort of reference.
Yeah, any kind of demo where you can hear it, because when you're playing, you have adrenaline, it feels exciting, but it's going to be different than what the audience hears. Someone listening to it, they're not as excited as you are about your music. So you have to make sure that from a listener perspective, the song's there. Another thing is usually most modern styles of music are recorded to a metronome, so time is exactly on. So do that. Every member of the band should be able to perform their track, whatever they play, just sitting there listening to a click, for time. They should be able to play it front to back without hearing any of the other tracks going on. It shouldn't have to be, I'm reliant on this for that cue or whatever. Because when you're in the studio, you might not have, like as you're layering things, you have your drums, put your foundation first. You might not have whatever cue you're used to having live, or it might be a visual, but usually most stuff's overdubbed nowadays, so you're not going to have that. So, you really should be able to play front to back and not even think about it.
What would be the kind of standard for when bands come in? Can they choose to record live altogether, or is it kind of like, where do you start with? And where you start to layer?
A lot of it's for, based on genre too. If it's most modern styles and most sounds, it's generally not recorded live altogether. You'll have a click track, and you'll have maybe a rhythm guitar that's recorded to the click track, or that with a vocal, whatever is needed for reference, and then the drummer plays to that, and then you go re-record everything individually, get the make sure you're getting the best tone and performance out of it, all of those. If it's a bluegrass band that's like very traditional, 3 guys around a microphone, then it's probably better to have 3 guys around a microphone. So of course, more of that, then it's their performance that comes into play, because you can't go back and fix things. Generally, most bands that I see, and especially if it's a young band and they're not experienced in the studio, it's going to be get the foundation. So record the drums with those scratch tracks I'd mentioned, then edit the drums up tightly, and then recording from there, whether it be the bass next or guitars. It depends on what you're doing. I've done both, just whatever works. And vocals tend to be last, or after if it's a normal band, like with drums, bass, guitar, after all that's done, you'll do the vocals, then you'll come back and do more production elements and things.
How should I prepare as far as gear goes, tuning goes?
For drums, it's some old kits, some battered old kits sound fantastic. It depends on it depends a lot on the person playing it.
Good point.
Sometimes people will bring in a kit and they'll play it, and there'll be a great drummer playing this kit, and they make it sound great, so that'll work. Sometimes not so much, and so I'll have them use the house kit here, and we've got a DW kit that's those are pretty much standard. Those work for most anything. As far as preparing your own drum kit to bring it in, you're going to want to have at least a new snare head. That's like at least a new top head. Sometimes people have
the bare minimum.
Like that's like the bare minimum, and hopefully new tom heads on just the batter side's fine. If you haven't changed your resonant heads since you bought the kit 10 years ago, then that might be a good idea as well. That's kind of the bare minimum. Obviously, if you can have fresh heads, great. No cracked cymbals. That's a big thing, because cracked cymbals will sound terrible. You can't get around that. And then, same kind of thing goes for other instruments, for stringed instruments, bass, guitar, that kind of thing. It's, you want to have fresh strings. Obviously, they need to be stretched out a little bit. So you want to have as fresh strings as you can. The main thing with those is intonation. They have to be set up correctly. So, when you play 12th fret, it is the note that it's supposed to be, or play the 7th fret, whatever it is. Wherever you play, that note needs to be the note that you want it to be. Because if it's out of tune, you're going to go through a whole rigmarole of having to waste a lot of time, which is your money.
Yeah. So do you find yourself not only as an engineer, but also kind of as like a coach to, new bands or like burgeoning bands who haven't been in this environment before and much less play their instrument, something like this where they're paying for it, paying for the time, they got to play to a metronome, they got to perform well. I know that working with both you and Jay previously, you guys really push, all of your clients and each of the band members to really perform to their best quality.
For me, it's about getting the right performance out of the band member, and then obviously we do edit work and make sure, it's all very meticulous, making sure everything sounds right and is right. A lot of that, it's just I'm a nice guy. I can talk to people, and
all right.
I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm not a total jerk. But different people respond to different things, and so it's a lot of it's pushing them. Some people you can just tell them, hey, that sucked, do it again.
Yeah.
And there's a psychology that's involved in it,
Yeah.
especially with singers, because their voice is their instrument, and so
Yeah.
it's a very personal thing.
Mm-hmm.
So and a lot of it's I like to push, and if I feel like I can get a better take out of someone, I'll just try to figure out, okay, how can we get that take out of them? What can we do to? Some bands don't respond well. Some artists don't respond well to being pushed. Some some because they take it personally and they don't. Maybe they have a different idea of how something should sound than other outside opinions telling them, and that happens. So that's some artists don't like that. So if you're in a band and you do want that input and you're very open to it, make sure that the studio you choose or the producer that you're working with is somebody that will give you that will offer, that will bring, because that's a value that they bring.
Sure.
And if you're not looking for that, if you're looking to just go somewhere, have it recorded, and then you can find a place that's kind of what they're doing.
What's the conversation like with your clients? Do they pay you all up front, or they pay you when they get an actual physical CD from you? How does that work?
For most studios, there's a deposit that you have to pay to lock in your time.
Yeah.
So you lock in your dates, and it's usually 50% up front, 50% when it's done. Tying onto that, a lot of it is bands are wondering, okay, well, how long is it going to take me?
Yeah.
How much time, how much money are we looking at? And I've told bands, kind of made an analogy. It's like, well, I could tell you you're going to climb Mount Everest in 2 weeks, right? But if you hit bad weather, who knows? You might be stuck up there. You might know.
How prepared are you to climb Mount Everest?
Sure. So you need to come in prepared. I know how long it would take me under ideal conditions to make a record. I can tell you, make a certain kind of thing. But without working with a band, it's impossible to say for sure. A good rule of thumb, if you want, a good quality, modern sounding recording, is spend a 12-hour day at least. So 12 hours, 1 day per song. Yeah. And then a lot, 3 to 5 hours for mixing, mastering, whatever that takes.
So a band comes in, they've gone through, they've shopped around, they picked you recorded their album, you really pushed them to become a better musician and a recording artist. So now they have this album. Okay, well, what do I do with it now? So how can a band, before they've gone through that entire process of recording the album, how can they kind of prepare or develop some sort of strategy to actually do something with this physical product or digital or whatever to get it out and actually, get it heard and start making money or whatever their goal is?
Well, I think, and that's an important thing if it's a serious band that's trying to get out there with what they're doing, it's not just a fun project for them, then you really need to have a plan, and you're going to spend money, making the physical copies of the album that you're going to have, because if you're touring, you need something to sell. Marketing the record, bands don't realize it, but you can spend and you should budget, pretty much what you paid for the record. You should try to budget that amount if you can, in addition to that, for marketing the record. Yeah. So you're gonna want to make some physical copies that you can sell at shows. A lot of it now is electronic. Of course, you're gonna put it on iTunes. That goes without saying at this point in time. But it's like, then you need something that shows. You need something that if people do become your fans, they'll want to go to your show to buy this thing. Yeah. So bands need to make a plan. They need to figure out, okay, we're gonna do this. We need to build some sort of. If you don't have it already, you need an online presence. You need hype. I've seen some hit or miss things with as far as like a publicist goes, because you can talk to people who have those kind of you pay them for their service to get you out to blogs and things. Maybe they have contacts with that, so that can
But
work.
it's still up in the air. It's not like a for sure thing.
Yeah, I mean it's never for sure, and that can work, or it might work, it might not. Another thing is just to throw it out there yourself to blogs. Try to feed it to them. Some blogs, I mean, obviously if you just give it to Pitchfork and you're not the greatest thing ever, they're not going to play it. But if it's some smaller blogs, you can get it out there and you can start really pushing it. Something I've seen that's been really good lately has been like remixes, like DJ mixes. So if you're a rock band, you get stems of your songs and send it out to some some
and so this
producers.
would be the artist contacting these DJs or these
like
contacting songs, and they're like, hey, check me out.
This
might be cool for your next
hit. Because some of these DJs, they'll have millions of views on YouTube. They'll have millions of this and that, and so you can get that out there, and that gets your band name. That'll bring fans. Yeah, I've done things in some of my personal music, like bands I've been in and stuff I've created, where I've worked with a publisher that's got music in commercials. Yeah, a bunch of different things. It's really cool. It's a good opportunity for bands like that. If you're an unknown band and you don't have money and a label behind you, is to find a publishing company that that they believe in what you're doing. They're looking for something. Obviously, you have to make your music marketable. There are usually certain prerequisites for that, like it must be recorded to a click, so they can cut it. Because the editors are going to take sections and they might loop parts, so it has to be very, very tight.
To kind of wrap things up, like if you could, and this is hard, but if you could just like sum up or give one piece of advice to up and coming bands who really want to get their career going. I mean, it's hard, but like what would be the one piece of advice that you could give to somebody?
I'd say stick with it and work hard, and even when things, if it seems bleak, keep pushing through, because they can understand that things won't always go your way. I've seen bands that have gotten hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of investment put into them, and then the rug got pulled out from under just a few months later. And the difference between the bands that will get that opportunity again and the ones that will just fade away is being able to stick with it. And knowing that, a band is a tough relationship, members will come and go, that happens.
Yeah, surely.
Understand that if you want it, just keep going for it. It's a young man's game, so you gotta, hopefully you can get out there while you're young and have the right combination of luck and hard work, and have that meet. And, if not, I mean, we all love playing music, so it's one of those things where, well, the worst case scenario, I have this record that I'm proud of that I made, or these records, and these things, I can look back on all the records I've done and the touring and stuff and be like, yeah, that was awesome. Like, I wouldn't trade that for anything. Yeah, so it's like, that's like the worst case scenario. Really, it's like a win-win if you think about it. It's like don't get heartbroken if you're not the next rock star, but understand that you got to do something that a lot of people don't ever get to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So we just want to wrap up, and I want to say thank you to all the viewers out there. If you'd like to reach out, go ahead, and if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and go to bandtactics.com or email me directly at bandtactics@gmail.com. I would be the one answering your emails. And also, if you have any ideas on topics you'd like to see covered, then let me know, and I'll be sure to include them in the next video update. Subscribe and like this video if you enjoyed it, and if it was informative to you, please like it, and please subscribe to the channel. Keep up to date on all the latest Band Tactics videos. Thank you. Thanks for having me.